The crack of a fist against a jaw isn't something you expect to hear at a bus stop on a sleepy Tuesday morning. But that's exactly what cut through the humid air on Maple and 14th, right in the middle of downtown Cleveland. One clean hit, and a man in a faded blue polo dropped flat on the pavement. His badge clipped lazily to his belt, caught the sunlight as he fell. For a second, the whole block froze, coffee cups dangling, pigeons scattering a vending machine, beeping like even it couldn't believe what just happened. And standing there, her hands still clenched, was the one girl he thought would never fight back. Her name was Nia Holloway. 5 years ago, she was just a teenager, a quiet honor student from the South Side, arrested on her way home from school. They called her a thief, a liar, a troublemaker. Two officers, men who wore their power like a second skin, swore she'd attacked a store clerk. The security footage mysteriously vanished. The judge barely looked at her. Her lawyer told her to take the plea and move on. So at 17, Nia was shackled and sent away for something she never did. That man lying on the curb, groaning, clutching his jaw, Officer Dale Brenner, the same cop who smirked when he took the stand and said she fit the profile. The same one who leaned into the microphone and lied while Nia's mother wept in the back of the courtroom. Now here he was, years later, trying to laugh at her again. He'd called her a jailbird as she waited for her bus, said she still looked like a thief. The words cut, but not like before. This time she didn't swallow them. This time she answered with her fist. People gasped. Phones came out. Somebody whispered, "Did she just hit a cop?" Yes, she did. But Nia didn't run. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket, creased and worn from too many nights of being read under dim light. Her exoneration letter. Proof that the state admitted what the world refused to see, that she'd been innocent all along. She slid it back into her pocket and waited. And then came the sound she knew too well. Heavy boots on concrete, full of swagger and arrogance. Officer Mark Doyle Brenner's old partner, now grayer at the temples, but no less smug. He spotted his buddy on the ground and sneered. Well, didn't think I'd see your face again." Guess they let anybody walk free these days. Nia didn't answer. She just stared, calm, unreadable. Doyle's amusement soured when he saw the crowd, the cameras, the phones already streaming. His hand twitched toward his belt. "You're under arrest," he barked. "For what?" Nia asked, voice steady. "You assaulted an officer. You mean the same officer who called me a criminal in public and stepped into my face? The same one you lied with under oath?" Her words were soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "All of that is on video now," the crowd murmured. A woman in scrubs called out, "He provoked her first." Another man added, "She didn't touch him until he came at her for the first time in years." Doyle looked unsure. He puffed up his chest anyway. "You think because some judge stamped your paper you're a hero?" Nia tilted her head. "I don't need to play hero. Just existing seems to scare the hell out of you." Before he could snap back, she reached into her armrest and pulled out another envelope stamped with the seal of the Cleveland Civil Rights Council. She dropped it at his feet. "That's a formal complaint. Misconduct, suppression of evidence, conspiracy, filed yesterday. Go ahead, add retaliation to the list." The sirens came next, real ones. Squad cars pulled up, officers stepping out, caught between their colleagues in the sea of cameras. One young cop asked carefully, "Ma'am, do you have ID?" Nia handed him her card. Not a license. A laminated badge from the nonprofit where she worked. Research Fellow, Justice Renewal Project. The officer blinked, recognizing her name. "You're the Holloway case." His shoulders sank. He turned to Doyle. "Sir, you're compromised in this situation. You need to stand down." The crowd erupted, some clapping, some whispering, but everyone watching. Doyle's face twisted with rage he couldn't hide. And Nia, she just sat down on the bench she'd been waiting for all along, as calm as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this exact moment. But her story didn't start at that bus stop. It started in a courtroom that smelled like dust and floor polish. At 17, Naya had sat in a borrowed dress, hands folded, listening to strangers decide her future like she was a line item on their docket. Brenner had lied under oath. Doyle had nodded along. Her lawyer had told her not to speak. And when she whispered, "But the cameras," he'd waved her off. She remembered the judge never meeting her eyes. Her mother clutching a tissue, her own voice cracking when she finally said, "No, I didn't do it." But nobody cared. They sentenced her anyway. Prison changed her. Clarissa, an older girl with a scar above her eye, taught her how to survive, how to keep quiet when guards planted things in cells, how to hide the trembling when bigger kids tried to steal your shoes. But Clarissa also handed her a pencil stub one night and said, "Write it down, prove it to yourself." So she did. On napkins, on scraps, on the back of disciplinary slips, Nia wrote everything. Every lie, every missing piece of evidence, every smirk from Brenner, every shrug from Doyle. She wrote because it was the only way to keep her sanity. And then came Miss Lorraine, a retired teacher who ran a writing circle. She read Naya's story, looked her in the eyes, and said, "You write like someone who's not done fighting." That sentence lived in Nia's bone. Years later, a group of law students stumbled across her case. They dug where no one else had. They found the discrepancies, the missing footage logs, the clerk who finally admitted he had been pressured. Piece by piece, they built the truth. And one morning, a guard handed her an envelope. Exoneration. Release. Freedom should have felt like air, but instead it felt like stepping into a world that moved on without you. Trees, sharper sidewalks, louder sunlight too bright. Naya carried her letter like a shield, unsure if the world even had a place for her anymore. But when she saw Brenner at that bus stop laughing with Doyle like they'd never destroyed her life, something inside her snapped. That punch wasn't revenge, it was a reminder. They wrote her off as a statistic. She came back as a reckoning. The video went viral. Headlines screamed, "Exonerated woman knocks out cop who lied in court." News anchors debated whether she was a criminal or a hero. But what mattered were the quiet messages flooding her phone. Anonymous texts. "He did it to me too. I was 16. Thank you for making them see us." The city couldn't look away anymore. Complaints that had been buried for years came to light. A boy named Terrence locked up for resisting arrest when he never raised a hand. A girl named Darnella jailed for a vape pen she swore wasn't hers. Same pattern, same officers, same silence. With Julius, a civil rights lawyer who believed in her fire, Naya filed a case bigger than her own. They held a press conference on the courthouse steps. Julius laid out the documents, and then Nia stepped to the mic. No blazer, no makeup, just her voice. "They said I was angry. They said I had an attitude. But the only thing I did was exist. They erased evidence, lied under oath, and called it protocol. And I wasn't the only one." The crowd didn't clap. They didn't need to. The silence was heavier than applause. Of course, the system pushed back. The assistant to the district attorney cornered her outside her apartment. "Things move fast, Miss Holloway. Some truths are more manageable than others. You should know that." She stared him down. "Tell the DA I'm not backing down. The longer she pretends this isn't happening, the louder we get." And then came the leak. A video from inside the precinct, years old. Grainy footage of Brenner shoving a teenage girl into a chair, Naya herself, then covering the camera with his hand. Minutes later, Doyle's boss, Deputy Commissioner Carlton, walking in and pulling a folder from the desk. Proof that the cover-up went higher than anyone admitted. When that clip hit the internet, the dam cracked wide open. Brenner was suspended, Carlton forced on to leave. Doyle's name plastered across every news ticker. And Nia. She was no longer just the girl they humiliated in court. She had become the face of a reckoning. But she didn't stop there. She went back to the community center where Miss Lorraine once held writing circles. A room full of girls' hoodies pulled tight pencils in hand. One asked, "What does it feel like to fight back?" Nia smiled softly. "Like being on fire, but not burning." Weeks later, suspended officers Brenner and Doyle showed up again, At that same bus stop, shoulders squared like they still owned the street. But this time the crowd was ready. Phones out, voices loud. Doyle's face cracked under the weight of truth, and in a move no one expected, he stepped away from Brenner. "I'm done," he said. "I've got a daughter. I won't stay silent anymore." Brenner lunged furious, but Naya caught his arm mid-swing, redirected his weight, and sent him sprawling, not with anger but with control. Cameras caught it all. Within hours, the video spread, Brenner attacking Doyle, confessing, Naya de-escalating without violence. The department had no choice. Investigations, suspensions, lawsuits. The wall that had stood for decades was finally cracking. That night, Naya sat in her grandmother's kitchen phone, buzzing with messages, mothers, teachers, strangers, all saying the same thing. "Thank you for making them see us." She hadn't asked to be anyone's symbol, but maybe that's what justice looked like. Messy, painful, unfinished. Not a gavel slam, but a bus ride where someone finally stands up and says, "Enough." So here's the question I'll leave you with when the system calls you a liar, when it tells you to sit down and stay silent. What would you do? Do you punch back like Naya did? Or do you wait for a courtroom that may never give you justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this aren't just entertainment, they're mirrors. And if you've ever seen someone silenced, or if you've ever been silenced yourself, I want to hear about it. And don't forget, subscribe for more stories that make you feel, make you question, make you remember. Because justice isn't just about what happens in courtrooms. Sometimes it starts at a bus stop, with one girl refusing to be erased.